Halloween wasn't just another low-budget slasher. Behind the bloodless kills and that piano theme, there's a buried alternate ending the studio locked away, and a handful of censored shots that would have pushed this past an R rating into something darker. What most people don't realize is that John Carpenter's masterpiece almost never happened. The money dried up, the masks fell apart, and the final cut you saw in theaters, not the one they shot first. These are 12 creepiest facts about Halloween, and hidden in them is the shocking truth that the studio demanded a last-minute reshoot to hide the real reason Michael Myers kept coming back. Number 1. The entire movie was shot in 21 days on a budget of $300,000. That's less than a single day of catering on a modern blockbuster. Why so cheap? Because no major studio would touch it. Carpenter had to beg independent investors, most of whom thought a movie about a mass killer stalking babysitters was box office poison. Here's the scary part. They shot 6-day week, 12-hour days in spring weather that looked nothing like October. The cast wore winter coats in 80-degree heat, sweating through wool, faking cold breath. And if you look close during the daylight scenes, you can see palm trees in the background. Trees the crew spray-painted brown and scattered fake autumn leaves under. The trick worked, but it almost didn't, because the next problem was worse. Number 2. The iconic Michael Myers mask is a William Shatner Captain Kirk mask bought for $1.98 at a costume shop. Production designer Tommy Lee Wallace grabbed it off the rack, ripped the eyebrows off, cut the eye holes wider, spray-painted it hospital white, and messed up the hair. That's it. What were they afraid of? Spending real money on a custom prosthetic they couldn't afford. But here's the twist. Shatner didn't know his face was being used until years later. He thought it was funny. Carpenter thought it was perfect. Because the blank, emotionless stare you feel through the screen, that's not acting. That's a $2 piece of rubber with dead eyes. And that leads to number 3. Number 3. John Carpenter composed the entire score himself in 3 days on a synthesizer in his living room. He'd never scored a film before. The studio gave him no music budget. So he sat down with a keyboard his father taught him to play as a kid, and knocked out that 5-note piano theme in an afternoon. Why does it work? Because it's simple, repetitive, hypnotic. It drills into your brain like a heartbeat, but behind that minimalist genius was pure panic. Carpenter knew if the music didn't land, the movie would feel cheap and flat. He recorded it on basic tape equipment. No orchestra, no backup, just him, alone in a room, building dread one note at a time. And this is where it gets weird. Number 4. Jamie Lee Curtis was paid $8,000 for the entire shoot. She wasn't a star. She wasn't even second choice. Carpenter wanted her because her mother was Janet Leigh from Psycho, and he loved the meta-horror connection. Curtis showed up on set nervous, unknown, and willing to do anything. She did her own stunts. She fell downstairs. She hyperventilated in closets until she passed out. The crew said she was a trooper, but what most people don't realize is Curtis had no idea Halloween would become a phenomenon. She thought it was just another B-movie that had played drive-ins for 2 weeks and vanish. The truth is, she was right to think that, because the studio almost killed it before release. Number 5. The original ending was longer and darker, and the studio cut it. In the version Carpenter shot first, after Loomis shoots Michael off the balcony, there's a slow 20-second sequence where Loomis walks to the edge, looks down, and the camera lingers on the empty grass below. Then it cuts to shadows, breathing. Footsteps in 5 different locations around the neighborhood. Studio said it was too slow, too art house. They wanted a faster cut to black. Carpenter argued. He lost. So they trimmed it down to what you see now. Loomis looks over, Michael's gone, roll credit. But here's the problem. That longer ending spelled out what Carpenter wanted you to feel. Michael isn't just a man. He's everywhere. And the studio buried that because they thought audiences were too dumb to get it. Number 6. There's a deleted scene where Michael stalks Laurie through a cemetery in broad daylight. It was cut for pacing, but production stills survive. In the scene, Laurie walks through gravestones after school, and you see Michael standing 50 feet back, perfectly still, half hidden behind a marble cross. No music, just wind and crows. Carpenter loved it because it made Michael feel patient, inevitable. But test audiences said it was boring, so it got scrapped. Now watch this. That scene would have added 2 minutes to the runtime. 2 minutes that would have made Michael feel less like a slasher and more like a ghost. And that leads to number 7. Number 7. The movie was almost rated X for violence, even though there's barely any blood. How? Because the MPAA in 1978 was terrified of implied violence. The shot where Michael pins Bob to the wall with a kitchen knife, the ratings board wanted it cut. The shot where he strangles a girl with a phone cord, they wanted it softened. Carpenter refused to add gore, but he also refused to cut the suspense. So he submitted the film 4 times, trimming frames here and there, until they gave him an R. The scary part? If he'd added more blood, they would have passed it faster. But Carpenter believed the unseen kill was more disturbing than the wet one. He was right, but it almost cost him a theatrical release. Number 8. Donald Pleasence, who played Dr. Loomis, thought the script was silly and almost turned it down. He signed on because he needed the paycheck. He'd just come off a string of low-budget European thrillers and was exhausted. But once he got on set, something clicked. He rewrote half his own dialogue, adding the obsessive, sweaty intensity that made Loomis iconic. Carpenter let him improvise, and Pleasence leaned in. He made Loomis sound like a man who'd seen the devil and couldn't stop talking about it. The crew said he stayed in character between takes, pacing the hallway, muttering to himself, "Here's the twist." Pleasence later said Loomis was the most fun role of his career because he got to play a guy losing his mind, and this is where it gets creepy. Number 9. The Shape. The name Carpenter used in the script for Michael was played by two different people. Nick Castle did most of the stalking and slow walk scenes, but in the final act, when Michael gets more physical and aggressive, Tony Moran stepped in for close-ups and the unmasking shot. Why the switch? Because Castle was a friend of Carpenter's who worked for free as a favor, but he wasn't trained for stunt work. Moran was, so they split the role. The problem? Their body language is slightly different. Castle moves like a gliding shadow. Moran moves like a man. If you watch close, you can tell when the switch happens, and that tension between supernatural and human is exactly what makes Michael so unsettling. Number 10. The house used for the Myers home was a real residence in South Pasadena, and the owners had no idea what they were signing up for. They rented it to the production for a few $100, thinking it was just background. But Carpenter shot the entire opening POV sequence there. The famous Steadicam walk through the house where 6-year-old Michael kills his sister. The crew covered the floors with plastic. The owners came home to fake blood in the carpet. They weren't happy. But here's the kicker. After Halloween blew up, horror fans started showing up at the house, knocking on the door, taking pictures. The owners tried to move. The address leaked anyway. That house became cursed by its own fame. Number 11. There's a rumored work print cut that runs 15 minutes longer, and some crew members swear it still exists in a vault somewhere. This version allegedly includes extended stalking scenes, more footage of Michael watching Laurie from across the street, and a prologue showing him inside the asylum before he escaped. Carpenter has denied it exists, but production notes mention trims for pacing, and a few old interviews reference scenes that never made the final cut. What were they afraid of? That the longer version was too slow for drive-in crowds. So why did they cut it? Because in 1978, attention spans were shorter. But the truth is, if that cut is real, it's buried somewhere, and no one's allowed to see it. Number 12. The movie made $70 million worldwide and launched the slasher genre, but Carpenter and Curtis barely saw a dime. They were paid up front. No back-end points, no profit participation. Carpenter has said in interviews he felt cheated. Curtis has said she didn't care because the role made her career. But here's the hidden truth the studio tried to bury. Halloween almost went straight to TV. Before theatrical release, a few executives floated the idea of selling it to a network as a movie of the week because they thought it was too small for theaters. Carpenter fought back. He demanded a limited theatrical run. And when the box office exploded in the first weekend, the studio scrambled to expand it nationwide. They'd almost killed the most profitable indie horror movie ever made because they didn't believe in it. Halloween became legendary not because everything went right, but because everything almost went wrong. A dollar mask, a 3-day score, a 21-day shoot in fake autumn, a censored ending, a deleted cemetery, a studio that almost buried it, and somewhere, locked away, there's a longer cut with more shadows, more silence, and more shape. That's the movie Carpenter wanted you to see. And maybe one day, someone will find it. Thanks for watching. Hit like, drop a comment with your favorite fact, and subscribe for more creepy movie secrets.